In 2025, Anthony, you said,
If you don't elevate, you won't survive.
ooh, that's a dramatic statement. Welcome to this program of Elevate Your Thought Leadership in LinkedIn. I'm Dr. Nancy Zier, the Sales Whisperer, and with me is
Anthony Pearl, and my business is Podcast Done For You.
Amen. So we want to, first of all, identify what the value is for listening to this program. Can you quickly articulate for our listeners why we're doing this?
Well, we're doing this because we want to see your business grow, and we want to show you the way to do that in 2025 that is going to ensure that you do stand out and that you know what the main buttons you need to press for your business are so that you not only survive, but you thrive.
Oh, I like that. Let's thrive in 2025. You see, it's not enough for you to be a thought leader. It's not enough that you are smart and talented and gifted and you continue to develop your knowledge base. You have to stand out in a crowded, noisy environment. Is that, am I summarizing it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that there's more and more pressure to stand out, and more noise that's around all the time. And AI is definitely adding to the noise and making it easier for people to add to the noise as well. But standing out from all of that, that is the absolute key, because you don't want to just be in with everybody else and not stand out. So, how do you do that and make sure that you are elevated and that you are above the rest of everyone?
Exactly. And in my opinion, what's needed, and this is where many thought leaders may fall down, is that they don't have a strategy. You need an actual strategy for how you're going to elevate your thought leadership on LinkedIn. And there are two parts to the strategy, what I call the outbound part, which is posting and commenting, and then the inbound part, which is where you bring people into your direct message box and you build relationships. And both aspects, Anthony, are necessary in order to stand out and elevate your thought leadership.
Absolutely. And I think too often the focus is on one or the other and not really understanding them both. I think that's the thing. A lot of it's been about ticking boxes in the past, and I think you could get away with that maybe up until the last couple of years. But certainly the way technology has gone, the way AI has come in, as we mentioned before, that if you are not uh, getting on top of both of those things, and really with an understanding of what is going to elevate you, then you're going to find yourself just being ticking the box and being one of the crowd. And I think that's not what anybody really wants. And too often that has been the case. It's a bit like I suppose in the 90s, and from then on, people went, well, I must have a website. So you had a website, but it was just basically brochureware and didn't stand you out from anybody else. Well, there's a real risk of content, particularly as being a focus at the moment, as being something where you're just ticking a box and you're not really doing anything to take yourself to the next level.
So this is an interesting problem for us to solve. And of course, the reason you and I are doing this broadcast is because we have solved that problem. We have taken our occupations and our body of knowledge, and we've elevated it here in LinkedIn, specifically LinkedIn. I know I have something like 10,000 followers. I think you have a similar number. And this testifies to the fact that we have built relationships. Now, do I know all 10,000 people? I don't, nor do you. However, that means that there's been some contact that they've had. They are following me. Hence, when I post, Anthony, they're likely to see my material in their feed.
Absolutely. And I think the important thing here is to note that whilst we may not know everybody, what we have done is make sure that we're trying to have conversations with everybody. I think that's the real differentiator. For a long time, people went, "Oh, I must have a few thousand followers," so they ticked buttons that often automated things, and magically they're getting new people that are following them. But are they really following them? Are they really interested in what you have to say? And I think this is the difference that we've tried to create. And over a consistent period of time, both of us have done this, and
Yeah.
we found that that's why we've come together, because the magic of what we're both doing works really well for anybody. And we thought, well, let's share it.
Right. So we met each other in LinkedIn, which just goes to show you that there are some amazing people there in LinkedIn for you to meet. Over 1 billion members and counting. Hence, your prospect is there. But it's not enough for you to have a PhD, a master's degree, to have a certification that indicates that you have expertise in a particular area, nor is it sufficient that you have 10, 20, 30 years of corporate experience or other kinds of activities that indicate that you know what you're talking about. None of that matters to the listener or the viewer. You have to stand out from that noisy crowd. In fact, you have to initially stand up. And that's where many of us don't realize the importance of being consistent and having a message that we are engaging with our audience on a regular basis.
Absolutely. And I think what's important to say here is this term thought leadership, which we started off with, has been bandied about a bit in recent times. And I think it's important to really understand that to be a thought leader, you need to keep learning, and you need to ultimately engage in the inbound and outbound with that thought leadership with an audience, because otherwise you're not really a thought leader at all. You're just someone who might be a leader within a small group of people. And I think there is an important differentiator there, because if you want to attract new people to your business, you need to be a thought leader. And thought leadership means that you're constantly learning and that you're constantly sharing ideas with people, and that those people have to be a broader audience. You can't be afraid to put your uniqueness out there. And I think that's what's really important, particularly in this age of AI, is it's your unique experiences and stories and insights is what differentiates you from the next person. And it is the reason why people want to do business with you or not. And that's okay as well, because part of the process is making sure you attract the right people to you. And there will be people that don't resonate with who you are and what you're about for one reason or another, and that's completely okay.
You said something very important. I want to go back to it about the fact that we need to tell stories. As a thought leader, and I'm a person, I have a PhD and I'm academically trained. I taught at the college level. I was a tenured professor. I confess, Anthony, I did not know how to talk to regular people, so to speak. I had students, of course, but students expect a professor to talk in a certain way. And if we're academic, well, okay, that's the way doctors there is wired. But in order to connect with your audience on LinkedIn or other social media platforms, I've had to learn a different way of talking. And as you suggest, what really can make me unique and draws people to me are my unique stories. When I begin to weave and tell you, like, being in a classroom and I share some of those experiences, whether or not you've had them, I become alive. And that's the missing aspect for many of us who've been academically trained. We don't think in terms of stories.
No, I think people too often are thinking in terms of, well, I must give these facts and figures, or I must tell people how to do something. In fact, telling people how to do something kind of is a big no-no.
No,
Uh,
no.
and people realistically, people don't want to know how to do something. They want to know that you can do it for them. That's why they're investigating who you are and what you're about, because you've got a particular set of expertise. And it's not about demonstrating a whole lot of knowledge through, through different instructional type things. It's really about the stories you tell about who you've helped, how you've helped them in a general way. and what the end results are that really makes a difference to where people are going to. So, with that in mind, I think that's what we're trying to share today, is that our story is one that we've come together through LinkedIn, through following similar techniques. We've come together in a way that we've appeared, Nancy's appeared on my podcast, Biz Bites.
Mhm.
And one of my more popular guests, I think we were having a look at it yesterday, and I know there was something like 85,000 impressions on YouTube alone of that particular video, which is fantastic. And that is the story. Then resulted in a whole lot of people subscribing to the podcast as well, which is fantastic for both of us. But it's also about how you share that and use that content so people it demonstrates to the audience why they should come to you. I mean, the podcast itself was all about what we do and sharing some stories on how we're doing those things and the difference we're making to people and giving people a few insights along the way. And that's getting to know you. And then it's being able to share that content on LinkedIn, but in multiple different ways, because people often just think about it in terms of simply saying, oh, I'm going to post. Posting is part of it, but it's not everything. And I think that is a big lesson for people as well, is that a lot of it has to do with how you are reaching out to people on a regular basis in a one-on-one fashion. Now, can we reach out one-on-one to 10,000 people each every week? No, that'd be a little bit difficult. But doesn't mean we can't pick and choose certain people where we think that certain things that we are talking about might be relevant to them. So that's the reason why you kind of get into a different mindset with LinkedIn, in that it's not simply about what you post and hoping like hell that there's going to be thousands of people that are going to like your post and take action as a result, because the truth is they probably won't.
And let's also take a look a little bit at the numbers, Anthony, because there's so much hype right now about how to 10x a business and how to scale and, dramatically increase it and so forth. But the thought leader that we're talking to and the thought leaders that we're not looking for thousands of people to take advantage of what we do. In fact, when you think about it, during any given year, we're probably serving less than 100 folks, right? But these are 100 prime people that truly benefit, and there is a connection that's made. Not only do they want what we have, they're our favorite people to work with. They become our friends, right? And colleagues. And there's a real exchange going on. So we don't need 10,000 people in our audience, but we do need a couple hundred, maybe up to 1,000 of real people who genuinely have an interest in our topic.
Absolutely. I think that's the important thing, is that people have to show their own interest in what you're doing and what you're saying, because if they don't raise their hands, they're just ticking a box as well. And so that's an important thing, is that we all want those people that are engaged with us because they like what you have to say and that they're looking for an opportunity to work with you. It's just a question of when. And I think that's the important part to consider, is that if you really are engaging with an audience and really talking to them, it's a question of when they will raise their hand and want to come and do something with you. And so you have to keep engaging. And I think that's the important thing about being a thought leader as well, that we were talking about, is that it's a kind of a rinse and repeat scenario, that you have to be learning all the time. You have to be adding your insights. You have to be sharing it with an audience. And you have to be doing that consistently on multiple platforms in lots of different ways, engaging directly with people as well. And you have to keep repeating that cycle because it is, as we said, about inbound and outbound, because realistically, the inbound happens because you're doing some of the outbound.
Exactly. And so, Anthony, content is always a big stumbling block. The thought leaders that you and I work with, they have plenty of content. In fact, some of them are authors or authors to be. They have plenty of content, but it's hard for them to get it out. As I said a bit ago, for those of us who've been academically trained, we have a tendency to talk in jargon and language that the common person may not resonate with. Hence, how can we draw them out? What kind of content can we help them create so that they sound like a regular Joe? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's part of this having a conversation. I mean, it's a bit like this today, right? That if you're watching this, it's easy enough for one of us to just do this on our own. However, doing it on your own is it's a lot tougher to actually deliver this without it being a conversation. I think that's an important aspect to it.
Right.
And B, it's not quite as exciting either. You feel like you're being lectured to, as you've got experience doing. It's a very one-dimensional scenario. Whereas when you've got this kind of situation where you're having a conversation with people, it really changes the way you engage. And I think that's an important aspect of how you need to approach what you're doing. It is about a conversation. It is about engaging people. I think that's something that we really want to take and help people take to the next level.
So that immediately brings to my mind the idea of podcasting. Last year, it was my goal to become a podcast guest, which I achieved, not only in your platform, but a number of others. And that is a way for me to elevate my thought leadership. It's also a way to elevate the thought leadership of the podcasters as well. So the fact that you interviewed me, and you are a very skilled interviewer, one of the best podcast hosts that I had the pleasure to work with. This is something that, again, I want the listener to take into account as they are viewing or listening to this. How can we make it easier for them to create content that is, conversational?
Well, I think part of it is that this misnomer that everyone thinks they can do everything themselves. It's one of those flaws of being in business, right? That you feel like you have to do everything. But the truth is that there are certain skills that others are better at. And I appreciate the kind words about the hosting of podcasts. It is something that I have been training to do for a very, very long time. It's part of my skill set. I trained in broadcast journalism a long time ago, and I've worked extensively in the media and could tell you many stories about that along the way. And what I do know is that it is a skill set to be able to do that, to be able to lead that conversation. And I think that's the important part here, is that what you want is someone to facilitate the ability for you to be seen as the expert. That is the important thing, not trying to do everything yourself, because when you do, you often leave short in a lot of different areas, and you underestimate how difficult it can be to do it completely on your own, or to be a host. I think one of the biggest flaws that I see consistently in podcasting is that people say, okay, I'm going to have a podcast, I'm going to interview people, which is great, but they've got no experience in interviewing, so they're usually not a great interviewer, and they forget about the fact that they're actually the expert, which is the reason why they're doing the show, and they spend more time elevating the guest than they do themselves. I deliberately on my podcast, I am about elevating the guests, because what I'm trying to demonstrate is my ability as a host, not trying to sell any other skill. And I think that that's a really important thing for people to understand when you really take a harsh look at a lot of podcasts that you might listen to. Be a little bit critical, because quite often you're more interested in the guest than you are in the host. Although I have seen the reverse happen, and I've had a few guests that have told me some stories about podcasts they've appeared on where they've hardly had a say at all, because the person hosting the show has been more interested in themselves. So I think it's an important balance to find, but it is an important thing for people to understand that what you want is that facility to be able to be part of a conversation and to be able to be seen as the expert in your particular area, and make that as easy as possible and let someone else worry about everything else.
Oh, yeah, I like that idea, because you're right. There are so many behind the scenes activities that take place in any kind of marketing effort, podcasts being one of those. But there's certainly a technological piece to podcasting that perhaps just writing a post doesn't have. But if you really dig into writing a post, you find out that there are some forms to follow too. Adding an image will make that post come alive. And so, every form of marketing does require some behind the scenes help, and we're not equally skilled in all of these.
No, and I think that's where, that's where it's also important to understand your audience and to really get an insight into who they are and what's the best way to engage them, which is where, I know your area of expertise is in truly understanding them, because I don't think a lot of business owners really understand who their audience is and what the best way is to engage them.
Yeah, it is true. And that is my area of expertise. And this is what I bring to our partnership, is the ability to identify what I call the ideal client profile. Too often people will tell you the demographics of who they might be seeking. And they might tell you that they're of a certain age or gender or occupational status, educational achievement, that sort of thing. But rarely do we talk about the personality style. And yet, when you think about it, when you dig deep and you answer the question, who are the favorite people that you work with, perhaps yourself, or favorite people who you have provided services to, you'll find that there is a personality element to it. And that connection that happens because of style is one that actually you can learn and you can master, so that you become better able at connecting with people in an authentic way. You don't change your style, you just speak the language of the other person's style.
Absolutely. And I think it's something that we often forget, isn't it? That we do it naturally when different people come into the room, when we're in a very social setting, but we don't tend to do that in a business scenario. And I've often tried to understand why that is the case. And it's very easy to do it if you know how to do it and you know your audience. I think that's the important bit, is that, it's important to understand the differences between the people that are walking through your door, whether it's a virtual door or an actual door.
It brings to mind a situation that happened a few years back with a client. We went to an in-person networking event, and before we entered the room, we were there at the entrance, scanning the room, and we looked at the groups of people that were talking among each other and so forth. And, I was able to point out to her, you see that gentleman over there, the way he's dressed, the way he's gesturing and moving and so forth, he's someone we want to meet. And sure enough, we went up to him, and, he was exactly the sort of client that she wanted to meet. And so by understanding some characteristics about the individual and how that is manifested in terms of their appearance and their gestures and their behaviors, and even, by the way, before you even meet them, you can take a look at their photo and figure out what their style is.
Absolutely. I think and we did. I remember that was one of the first things we did
that.
when we met and had a look at that. It was certainly a revelation in looking at some of those things. It's quite interesting looking at what people post just as their profile photograph, and what you can tell from that alone. I think that's quite fascinating. And that's, look, I think probably what we should do is tell people as well that we're looking for 5 people that we want to work with to elevate, their profile and to make them as a go-to person and really make a difference to their business. And we're just looking for 5 people who want to join a masterclass that we're going to hold coming up soon. So all you have to do is raise your hand. That's pretty much all you have to do, is reach out to us. You can put your name in a comment below where you're seeing this. You can reach out to either of us in a direct message. And that's the way to get on board. So you want to be amongst the 5 people that are going to be lucky enough to get elevated.
Yeah, and it's our plan to, of course, help you elevate your LinkedIn profile, because if you are posting on LinkedIn, that's the first place people go, is look at your profile. So you want to make sure that it speaks well of you, and that includes your photo, your banner, your headline, your about section, and there's some other key points that we'll go over too. And then it's a matter of content, which, as I can testify, Anthony is the master at drawing out and helping you relax and be comfortable and tell stories, because stories will sell more than facts. And so he's a master at helping to draw out those stories so that he puts you in the best light possible. And then you even post it for them, Anthony. You do too much.
We're going to do so many things, and I think that's the important thing is that we're looking for people who are interested in elevating their business, their brand, whether it's a personal brand or a business brand. But I think it's important to understand that we're looking for people, particularly in that professional services space, be you in the tech industry, be you a consultant, there's a million different areas that come into that sort of broader professional services category. But I think we're looking for people whose business is ready to go to the next level. Yeah. I think that's the important aspect here, is that there are things that you realize you're doing in your business, but you really want to take it next level, that you've achieved a bit, that the business is going well, but it's not going as great as you would like it to be, and that you really want to see 2025 explode for you. Mm-hmm. And to do that, that you need to elevate things with your brand. This is the way to do that, and we can make that possible for you. So again, raise your hand. Let us know that you are interested, and we'll have a conversation with you and get you signed up for a masterclass. All it is just letting us know. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. No obligation at this point. And again, we're just simply giving you an opportunity to apply. So if it resonates with you, let us know. And with that, I think we're ready to close it out. To your self-success. This is Nancy Zare, LinkedIn Whisperer, along with
Anthony Pearl from Podcast Done For You.